and welcome to this session. This is a repeat of a session that happened on Shivaratri day, around Shivaratri 2026. So I thought I need to record this, so we're doing this session. Thank you, folks, for coming in and helping me with this. It's fantastic. So we will explore Nataraja, basically, through various ways. The art of Nataraja, the psychology inside it, spirituality and religion of Saiva Siddhanta. Yeah, one of the ancient traditions inside Sanatana Dharma. So we're going to look at all of that step by step, and we'll look at Srishti, Sthiti, Samhara, Tirobhava, and Anugraha through the session gradually. Yeah. So these are three very different Natarajas. Okay, perhaps you know, perhaps you don't. The one on the right is a very famous one on the outside Prahara of Gangaikonda Cholapuram, and that's a very ancient temple in Tamil Nadu, about 1,000 years old. And then the one on the left is a fantastic Nataraja placed in Switzerland, in a place called CERN, Center for European Research on Nuclear Physics. Okay, and we look at why it is present in these places. And then this most magnificent Devata right in the middle is in a very famous temple in a village called Karuvelankulam near Tirunelveli in deep southern Tamil Nadu. Now let's look at what each of these offers and gradually take it forward from there. So to start with, we'll start with a certain observation of the world around us. And this is an observation that our ancient seers, artists in India have done. Yeah, everything in the universe is moving. The Earth is orbiting the Sun. The Sun is moving around the center of the galaxy. And our galaxy itself travels through the universe. Continents are drifting, rivers are flowing, oceans surge, animals are roaming and running. The blood inside our body is moving. The cells are constantly moving, regenerating. And atoms are also in motion. Now, I'm not saying all of these tectonic shift and plate movement was discovered by ancient Indians. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm just placing this in the current context today. And they would have observed something similar. Yeah, that everything in this cosmos is moving. That's a very interesting observation. But it is not moving in a random manner. It is non-random motion. And what is non-random about? That's what we will look at shortly. That this motion, it creates the Himalayas. This motion created Indian Ocean. It creates stuff. Yeah. And it sustains. And it sustains, when you say sustains, no, the dinosaurs roamed the earth for more than 200 million years. So we are much closer to the dinosaurs that went extinct at 65 million years than they were to the original dinosaurs that lived 135 million years before them. So they were really there for a very long period of time. So this motion sustains stuff it creates. At the same time, the motion also destroys. Dinosaurs have been completely wiped out. And we know that Sahara Desert, a few thousand years ago, maybe 5000 BC, 6000 BC time, was a lush green rainforest. And something shifted. It's now a desert. And we've found fossil remains of marine organisms in the Himalayas. So we know these things, this motion of the cosmos is creating form, is sustaining form, and is destroying form. This is something that our ancient seers and artists have seen. It has created the greatest kings. It created Shivaji Maharaj, it created Krishna Deva Raya, it created Raja Chola. It created you. It created me. And one day, we will also not be here. That's not very far away. In geological time span, can you compare it to 200 million years? It's a matter of this. So then the question that came Now, how do you represent this wonderment? If you go into your terrace and look at the night sky and wonder, I've done it many times. I'm sure many of us have done it, wondered at this massive cosmos. Yeah, like that. If you wonder at this thing, that there is constant motion everywhere, and this motion is creating, sustaining, and destroying. So, what is the best anthropomorphic representation of this phenomenon? I say anthropomorphic, basically, we mean a human form so that we can relate to it better. And this anthropomorphism is a very common trait in Indian art. Like we say, talk about Bharat Mata or Tamil Thai, Mother Tamil or Mother Earth. There is obviously no lady anywhere called Bharat Mata. There is no lady anywhere called Tamil Thai. But it's a very strong feeling. We have a connection to India. Those who are born in Tamil Nadu, who have Tamil as their mother tongue, have a strong connection to Tamil because these things have birthed us. It sustained us physically, it has given us cultural birthing, it has given us an identity. So there is a connection to it, and the moment you create an anthropomorphic representation, it becomes much easier to connect to it, to emote, to be evoked by it. So that's the question that our ancient seers asked. What kind of anthropomorphic representation can we do for Srishti, Sthithi, and Samhara? And then they came up with Nataraja, the king of dancers. Dance, I'm sure you have seen a live dance performance. A dance performance, no, a dancer is continuously moving and it's not a random movement. They are continuously moving, they're probably telling a story, they're evoking things in you, they're sustaining the evocation. I'm sure if you have seen a Bharatanatyam of some episode from Mahabharata, for example. Yeah, it evokes things in your stage play or a dance in particular. It evokes things in you, it sustains it, and then they wind it down. So a dance seems like a fantastic metaphor to capture it, and the dancer seems to be a fantastic way to represent it. Nataraja as the king of dancers. Now, what we see here in this particular image is a Chola bronze, world famous Chola bronze, and this image has evolved over centuries. This is not the first image that came. I'm not a historian, but you can refer to this particular YouTube lecture by Professor Madhusudanan Kalaiselvan. He speaks about the history of this Nataraja, and there is some claim that this is probably one of the earliest. Yeah, and the warrior here is Shatrubhaja, a famous warrior, and this is sometime in 2nd century AD, 3rd century AD. Yeah, so this is probably one of the earliest Natarajas. Now this has evolved over time, and what we see now is what was created at the peak of the Chola Empire around 10th century AD. Yeah. Now this Shiva is now kept not just in our temples, but it is kept not just in museums abroad. They've stolen many of the statues, but it's also kept in a fantastic place. It's a center for European research on nuclear physics. So there are a couple of people who've spoken about it. So one very famous person is Mr. Ananda Coomaraswamy. He passed away 70, 80 years ago. He was an excellent, world-renowned art historian and philosopher from Sri Lanka. So he wrote this famous book about Nataraja. And in his exact words, it's the clearest image of activity of God which any art or religion can boast of. Because they've really, really worked on it and refined it to bring about this art piece. And at the same time, there is Fridge of Capra. I'm sure you've heard of Fridge of Capra. If you've not, he's a famous particle physicist, theoretical physicist. And he is a lot into Eastern mysticism. And he has written a very famous book called The Tao of Physics, where he sees the parallels between modern quantum physics and Eastern mysticism in all different religions. Yeah. And then he says the dance of Shiva is a perfect metaphor for the dance of subatomic particles, which somehow creates everything that we see and sustains and destroys. Yeah. And I also want to play a short clip by the legendary Dr. Nagaswamy. He has spoken extensively about it. Let me just share that in a moment.
Nataraja is not a static image as we see that in the bronzes. It is a dynamic one, which is a cosmic movement that is captured by the artist of the Cholas to represent extraordinary movement of everything in the world beautifully, rhythmically, and attractively. And it is the creation. And we generally think that only the lifted left foot with 4 arms holding Damaruka in the right hand, fire in the left hand, and Abhaya Hasta and Kari Hasta. And this is generally called Nataraja. But any form of dancing Shiva is Nataraja. Shiva is extolled as Nadam Adum Vendan, the king of dance, by Jnana Sambandar in the 7th century in his Tevaram hymn at Pumbuhali. Pumbuhali is the birthplace of Jnana Sambandar, who lived around 650. From that time onwards, he is always referred to as the king of dance.
So when you find time, I will share this link. I would recommend to watch this entire video. It's about an hour. It's obviously a slightly aged Sri Nagaswamy ji speaking, a legendary person. It's fantastic stuff. Yeah. So that's as much I've had about to share about the art form. So I'll open the space for sharing. If anybody wants to share anything, I'll pause the recording. So we'll move on to the next lens. We saw Nataraja through the art lens. Now we'll move to the psychology lens. Yeah, from art to psychology. What's the mirror this is holding up to us? So if you see this image, the first thing you would see, you probably saw this image in Nagaswamiji's video talk also. There was a stone here, which I cunningly removed through AI. I think it is a later day addition. Something happened and somebody has fixed it later. Anyway, so this guy here, no, this fellow, obviously is from Asura, some demon, we all know. Who is he? Do you guys know his name? Does anybody know his name? And what else can you observe about him?
Is there also a goddess behind?
Yeah, there are some other pictures here, but this is the main thing.
Wow.
Okay, so he is called Apasmara. Apasmara is a Sanskrit name. In Tamil, he is called Muyalagan. Okay, Apasmara means somebody who has forgotten their divine origin. That I am divine by birth, by creation, is something that I have forgotten, and I am caught up with something else. And what that something else is, we will look at it shortly. Yeah. In Tamil, he is called Muyalagan. Maybe you can expand it as Muyal Pondra Agamudayavan. What that means is that you have an inner space like a rabbit. See, a rabbit is very restless, so it's constantly jumping around. Not just that, it's constantly reproducing. Rabbits reproduce at a very high rate. Yeah. So, in one sense, it is caught up extremely with this life force, which is moving, which is flowing through all of us. So that force is moving through all of us. In a rabbit, you can see it perhaps a little bit more strongly. Yeah. So the Muyalagan is somebody whose inner space is jumping around like a rabbit, who's caught up with the life force, incessantly. Then that leaves us with this question: who is Apasmara inside me, and who is Shiva inside me? So this is the yogic lens. We will try to understand things through the lens of yoga, and we will try to explore this a little bit. But the interesting thing about this image is that because Shiva is standing and Shiva is lying down, the best you can look up is like this, and Shiva and Apasmara can never see Shiva. Yeah. And in fact, in this whole metaphor, no, in Tamil, there's a beautiful name for this lifted foot. It's called Kunchita Padam. Yeah, and that's a symbol of grace. And Shiva and this Apasmara struggles to see them, struggles to witness them. So Apasmara is lying down, belly down, with Shiva's leg on top, and he's struggling to see Shiva. That's the beauty of this particular structure. So I will just pause here for a few moments and let us reflect. I'm also going to reflect. I request all of you to also reflect. So what happens to me? Who do I become when my cravings take over? Cravings can be for many things. It could be for Mysore Park. It could be for sex. It could be for appreciation. It could be for whatever it is. Yeah. When cravings take over me, whom do I become? And to what degree am I choiceful then? Likewise, when some emotional pain points are triggered, yeah, when our spouses know how to really touch them sometimes, we also know how to touch our spouses points then. If that happens, no, then what happens to me? To what degree am I choiceful then? So these are the first two important questions to observe what happens to me when these energies flood me. And the third question then is, who am I when neither the cravings nor the emotional pain is triggered? I'm not sleeping, okay, and completely not conscious of self, but I'm awake, energetic, acting in the world, but neither the cravings nor any emotional pain is operating through me. They're dormant. They'll come back tomorrow. That's fine. But as of today, who am I? So we'll pause here for a minute and reflect on this for ourselves. Okay. So we'll stay with that for a moment. We will move on. We will try to explore this apasmara in me a little deeper. Yeah. And these cravings and emotional pains are just two stark examples. There are many more energies that can take over me and make us less and less choiceful in many situations. Yeah. So what I would like to do is let's sit back and reflect on what are the stories, what is the most heroic story that you would tell about yourself? What's the first two things that come in your mind? So for me, I would say that, I learned yoga and went to explore it to good amount of depth and in various dimensions with a lot of effort. And I'm very proud of myself that because it was not a gift that came from my family lineage. It was not something that's easily available, and I had to take a lot of risks and do a lot of work to do it. This is a heroic story that I hold for myself. I'll take it briefly, but let's say if you are given 5 minutes and you say nobody's going to judge you, nobody's going to stop you, tell what's the most heroic story that you have about yourself. What would you say?
When I bought my house, when I bought my house,
Hmm.
that is a very heroic story.
Yes.
And even the storytelling explorations, that is also an heroic story. But buying the house came as the
Very nice.
topmost.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Likewise, we also have victim stories. What's my biggest, life hit me hard here story? I had to face a lot of shit. Life hit me really hard here. What is that victim story that I have for myself? Just get in touch with this. There are many, many stories that we have about ourselves. Yeah. So there are stories, there are childhood stories of joy. There will be stories of years of struggle and hardship, travel and wonderment, of heartbreak, disappointment, tears, love and very, very many. I've listed a few. There could be many, many more. But we have a lot of such stories in our mind about ourselves. What are those stories? Just get in touch with it for a few moments. This will help us get in touch with the sense of self. Who am I as I hold in me emotionally? Yeah. Because sometimes people answer this who am I question based on your LinkedIn profile or based on your Aadhaar card, not that. Who am I is basically the sum total of all the stories that I have about myself and especially the stories that have an emotional charge left in them. Like, for example, when I speak about the pride of something, I'll sit straight, my voice will be louder with clarity. Yeah. So I can observe for myself. I'm not saying any of this is right or wrong or good or bad, we need to change, etc. But just observe. This is my emotional who am I answer. This is what I'm holding in myself. So the reason we get in touch with these stories really define whom we are. Yeah. And sometimes we may not even remember some of these stories consciously. But if you really sit together at some point, maybe later after this session or at some point when you have time and you're in a quieter Sunday mood, what are the stories that I have? Yeah. What emotional evocations does it produce in them? Because this really influences how we engage with ourselves, others, and the world. And these stories have shadow sides. They've left a lot of residues in us. There are sides of them which we don't notice, and they also influence our engagement with the world, and often in ways that are not very beneficial, neither for us, nor for others, nor for our spouse, family, society. Some because this can create a lot of unexpected harm also. This masks our deepest sense of self. There are a lot of stuff the stories do. So in our daily grind, when we are running behind the world is constantly pulling us in some chakkar. Constantly, there's work to be done. There's rent, EMI to be managed. Job, career, health, midlife crisis, blah blah blah. Amidst all of these things, the stories quietly accumulate, and we never get a time to really pay attention to them. And then, not just what the stories are, then what does the story do to me? And therefore, through that, what do I do to the world and others and to myself? And that is what we call as emotional residues. So many of these stories have, it leaves residues of fear and rage, powerlessness and shame, guilt and exhaustion, variety of dysfunctional things. And these are our clues. And this is called Tirobhava in Shaivism. Remember on slide one I showed Srishti, Sthithi, Samhara, and then Tirobhava and Anugraha are five main aspects of Saiva Siddhanta. This is Tirobhava. Because we don't consciously recollect these stories. When I sit back and say, maybe yes, we'll think of one or two. But often we don't remember these stories. We don't see how these stories influence us, our sense of self, how we engage with the world, etc., etc. Yeah. And just as a a caution note. I'm not saying we should not have stories, we should not have residues, and therefore, this is wrong, right, etc. We're simply observing it as a fact, as a reality. This is happening. Yeah, and that is Tirobhava, because when I'm deeply in pain, some of the victim stories get, they blow up on my face, and it feels extremely true. But I'm a lot more calmer state. It may not blow up like that. So then the question is, how much of it is really true? Some amount of it is true. Some amount it's a complicated engagement with these things, and that masks our Saiva Siddhanta, all our acharyas say this masks something deeper inside us, and that is called Tirobhava. Literally in Tamil tradition, no, in temples they'll put this tirai, they'll put this curtain in front of the divine, the tirai. It's the same thing. The Tirobhava blocks something deeper. So to get into this, as usual, in Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma, a lot of fantastic stories. We look at the story of Tripurantaka. Okay, there are a lot of stories of, a lot of sculptures of Tripurantaka around. This is one beautiful one from Karnataka. There's another beautiful one from Kailashanatha temple in Kanchipuram near Chennai. Very, very, very many places. So the story is there were three asuras once upon a time: Vidyunmali, Tarakakshan, and Kamalakshan. Okay, they were the kids of Surapadman who was killed by Muruga. And these guys did a lot of tapas towards Brahma. And as usual, when Brahma appears in front of them, they will ask for immortality. But Brahma says, sorry, buddy, immortality to nahi ho jayega. Not possible. You have to really ask for something else. So they came up with this complex, convoluted way in which they thought they could be immortal, eternal. So each asked for a celestial floating city, and they will align only once in 1,000 years. And at that very moment, a very skilled archer has to fire an arrow through all the three cities, and only then the cities will get broken and they can get killed. So this was the condition that they put, and as always, now they become very powerful. Nobody is able to defeat them. The devas are not able to defeat them, so they become very powerful. And then they do all kinds of torture. They go on, torment, common people. They fight with devas. They take over the devas. They do all kinds of nonsense. And the society is in turmoil. Everybody has a problem. So they all go to Shiva, saying, boss, you need to really help us. We're in trouble. Shiva says, okay, yes, I'll do it, but every devata has to contribute. It's not something that I want to do by myself. I want every devata to contribute. So yes, all of them came. So Bhuma Devi became Shiva's chariot. The four Vedas became the horses. Brahma became the charioteer. And Vasuki became the string. Vishnu became the arrow with which he's going to shoot. Agni Deva sat at the front of the arrow. Vayu Deva sat at the back. Everybody came in. Then Muruga came. He was the army commander. Then Ganapati came and showed all of his power and presence and stomped the earth. And they were all going. Yeah, they were all marching towards Vidyunmali, Tarakakshan, and Kamalakshan. But finally, what happened is everybody after some point thought, no, I am contributing so much, and it's only because of me that Shiva is going to win this battle. Yeah, so Vishnu thought so, Murugan thought so, Bhuma Devi thought so, everybody thought so. So then Shiva sensed all of these things and said, so he wanted, as usual, Shiva does this Thiruvilayadal in Tamil tradition. He does this sacred game. So he did something, and one of the wheels of the chariot broke, came off. Chariot almost fell down, and everybody was in, shock. The celestial cities are going to align any moment now, and if we miss it, it's another 1,000 years. What's going to happen? The chariot is gone. What's going to happen? But Shiva saw that, and with just one smile, apparently, it's called Punmuruval, a beautiful little smile, the whole palaces, they burst. And the three asuras came and fell at the feet of Shiva and apologized for all the stuff that they've done. And they still had to be given moksha, which only Mahavishnu can do. And so Shiva finally shoots them with the arrow and then gives them moksha. So this is a beautiful story of Tripurantaka. Okay, there's a lot of wonderful sculptures here. like as we always do, let's try to experientially connect with it and connect it back to the stories of ourselves and Tirobhava and other things that we just saw. Yeah. So, and where am I getting this? That these three puras are something experiential. Tirumular is a great saint, one of the 63 Nayanmars, and he lived maybe around 3rd century AD, 4th century AD, and he's written this beautiful thing. Appani Senjadai Adi Puradanan முப்பரம் செற்றனன் என்பார்கள் மூடர்கள் முப்புறம் ஆவது மும்மல காரியம் அப்புறம் ஏதமை யாரறிவார். So in short, he says these three cities, the three purams, are threefold impurities within. Okay? And we call these as, so in Indian, ancient Indian psychology, they organize this as chakras, as three layers of being, and in each of these three layers, we accumulate uh, impurities and residues. Yeah. So we will try to look at it. I'm going to show a few slides with some words. Let's just stay with it. Just see what images come for you. Moment you see any verses, any words that come, any thoughts that come, any emotions that come. Just watch for it. I will show each slide for about a minute, and then we'll go to the next slide. Okay. So, and by the way, in the Tamil tradition also, they speak about Pati, Pasu, Pasam, like how I showed the first 5 things, a slightly different way. So basically they say Pati is Lord Shiva, Pasu is all of the beings, and Pasam is this Mummalam, these threefold impurities, which is holding us from Shiva. So that's in the Tamil tradition, they speak of this. So let's go to this self-reflective part. Look at this, look at these words, stay with them. What is evoked in you? Any images, emotions, verses, any memories? Okay, just do a few forced breaths through your mouth and let go of any evocations. 3-4 rounds, so that we let go of anything that has come from this and we move on to the next set of words. Again, read these words, any images come up, any memories from your life, any emotions, any thoughts. Okay, we'll let go of this. Again, forced exhalation, just take in a deep breath to a comfortable extent and forced exhalation to the mouth, just 3-4 rounds. Now, the last set of words. Okay, we'll let go of this too. Just blow. Keep your eyes closed and stay in touch with your breath and what you feel. I'm going to be reading out some sentences. Just listen to them quietly and allow whatever evocation is there in you to come out. Close your eyes. I am exhausted, tired of being the provider, the goalkeeper in so many spaces in my life. I wake up to face the grind of everyday life, a lot of thankless responsibilities through the day. Then I come home tired and crash to sleep. To wake up again to yet another similar day. My body is creaking. I don't have time or energy to fix it. I'm sometimes sad about this. At other times, I'm not so sad about this. But most importantly, I'm running low on energy balance. I'm really not sure where my refill is going to come from. Open your eyes. Just open the space out for any sharing if anybody wants to share. So we've looked at the art form. Sorry. It's better. So we've looked at the art, the psychology, then we will look at the spiritual and the religious side to it. Okay. Now, first, some basics in what we do in Sanatana Dharma with this. Yeah. It's very important to sometimes we don't know this. Like from a stone, how does the stone become a god? Yeah. And different people will look at it differently, and that is perfectly fine, each to their view. But from the stone, a stapati, a shirpi sculpts it. Then, usually a rishi, a saintly person, usually Rishi, does prana pratishtha. Yeah, and imbues the shilpam with some special powers, and that's why it becomes a vigraham. A vigraham. Graham is a space. That is the vigraham. It just becomes a special space where it becomes capable of holding a divine energy. And then it becomes an archa murti, where there is constant prayers to it. Okay. And finally, if that archa murti speaks to you in your heart, then it becomes your god. It becomes your devata. Okay. Now, for different people, that's why there are different, you will have a Ishta Devata, Kula Devata, Kshetra Devata. It's a beautiful thing in Sanatana Dharma. No? You can carry your own Ishta Devata with you. Yeah. So this is the path through which objectively the divine is there in that being. But each of us have to discover it for ourselves in our heart. If I don't discover it in my heart, if it is not speaking to me in my heart, yeah, then we have to see there's nothing wrong in it. We'll honestly acknowledge it and say what it is doing to me. Okay, so the classic thing, no, the Rashomon movie, the same mountain looks differently to different people. For some, yeah, for a hiker, it's a challenge. For somebody, it's sacred. Somebody, it's a resource. For somebody, it's a god. So these divine things. So that's why, while it is divine for somebody who's praying to it, somebody from some museum comes and they steal it and take it to some museum in New York or London. For them, it's a sculpture. Yeah. So depending on where you are located, you see it differently. So, therefore, what we do, so one is to locate ourselves where honestly we are, genuinely, but also to recognize that some of the greatest seers in this country, what have they said about these divine beings? Yeah. And in fact, there's this very famous saying in Tamil. This is from Tolkapiyar, the ancient Tamil grammarian. No, it's the first Tamil text, Tolkapiyam. It basically says, Niraimori Mandar, Anayar Kilanda, Maraimori Dane, Mandirameva. What these people who truly lived their lives say, that becomes the mantras for us in our tradition. So, in some sense, that is, you take it very seriously. You don't casually dismiss it, even though it may not be in your experience. So, you also hold your experience and be true to it. But we also listen to these people like Adi Shankara and the four gentlemen here, called the Nalvar, the four, they call them the Samaya Kolavar, the four very important Nayanmars of the 63 Nayanmars in Tamil tradition. Yeah. What they have said becomes a very important thing and we hold it. So in yoga, we call that also a pramana. Pramana is correct understanding, but it's a agama pramana or aptavachana pramana. No, aptavachana is somebody whom you trust. But then it has to evolve to pratyaksha pramana, as it is my lived experience. And it's not just because somebody is saying, but that progression has to happen. And we'll look at some very interesting ways in which Shiva is described in Tamil and in the Yoga Sutras, so that we can get a sense of what they're saying. Okay. So one of the very important names for Shiva in Tamil is Pirava Yakai Piriyon. So what it means is that the great one who was never born in a body. Yeah. In a slightly different perspective, the Yoga Sutras speak about this very clearly. It says Klesha Karma Vipaka Ashayaihi Aparamrishtaha Purusha Visheshaha Ishvaraha. What it says is we do actions in the world, but our actions are already biased by our emotional residues from the past. It's not just our past. Often we have inherited some emotional residues from our parents on either side. Okay, and this is influencing, and the world is responding to it, and then it further affects my father. Like for example, whenever I say, somebody says a victim story, somebody will say, Achucho, so they'll really, mollycoddle you, and then you will feel, right royal about your victim story. Or somebody will say, judge you for, oh, don't make a big bullshit story, man. And then it'll trigger an anger, or it will start doubting yourself whether this happened really, are they gaslighting me? So the world is going to respond in different ways, and that is further going to influence. So this is a cycle that most of us are caught in. All human beings are caught in. Almost all of us. Very few have gone past this cycle, and Patanjali defines this being who's never caught in this as Ishvara. It's a beautiful, it's a very precise definition of Ishvara by Patanjali, and that's exactly what it means in Tamil also. Pirava Yakai Piriyon, the great one who was never born in a body. And another beautiful thing is Nachinar Kiniyar. This is another beautiful word from Tamil for Shiva. Because in Tamil we say Nachu Pandradhu. When a child is constantly pestering their parent, no, I want this. They don't care whether the parent is happy, unhappy, disgusted, angry, but they want this. They want this. So that kind of a certain single-minded wanting of something is what is going to lead you to this. Is what this is implied by this particular thing, Chinar Kinya. And there is a very similar Yoga Sutra that says the similar thing. Satu Dirgha Kala, Nairantarya, Satkara, Adara, Asevito, Databhumi. Says you need to practice, and this practice has to be for Dirgha Kala, long period of time, Nairantarya, every day, Satkara, Adara, meaning with the right attitude, with right respect, Asevito, attitude of service, Databhumi, anchored wherever, that whatever is your Bhumi, wherever that you're anchored. In India, they've given a lot of different traditions such as Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga. Different forms are there, but you need to keep asking whichever form is your chosen thing, whichever speaks to you well for many, many years. That's what this is all to get a sense of what this divine could be. Swapadesa. They say this Swapadesa means some of these things have Swa Upadesham, which is swap. They just by understanding it, it itself gives us Upadesam. So I chose some of this Nachinar Kiniyar and Piravaya Kai Piriyon as something that can really help us have some sense of what that divine could be. And then we'll move on to the last part of Siddhanta, Anugraha. Okay, and this is a highly loved, when everybody loves him, revered Tamil saint who lived in the last century. So we all, Variyar Swamigal. So we all, it's very, very beloved. He has a very beautiful story to explain what this concept of Anugraham means. We saw no, the slide one, the fifth one. We saw Tirobhava and Anugraha. Yeah. So apparently there was this king once, yeah, and he was a very good king, powerful king, and he had a very trusted minister who was his lifelong friend, childhood friend, yeah, and they are very good friends. His minister, king, always well. But unfortunately, the king had diabetes or some such disease, and they had to remove 2 of his fingers. Yeah, some amputation had to be done, and he was very unhappy. Everybody in the kingdom came and they consoled him, and then they checked on him, seeing how he's doing, how he's taking to it, etc., etc. But this minister didn't come. So the king was very, initially, first 2 days he thought, okay, he's busy, I'm myself an unwell, so he's taking care of the kingdom. But 3rd day, 4th day, he didn't come, and the king was getting very unhappy. So then the 5th day or something, this minister comes, and the king is already seething in rage and is asking him, boss, what took you so long? Something big has happened to me, and I'm very unhappy about it. Why didn't you come earlier? And this fellow says, Ella Anugraham, Ella Seva Peruman Anugraham, meaning this is Anugraham of Lord Shiva. King flew into a rage and he's like, idiot you are, man. I've lost fingers in my hand and you're calling this Anugraham, you idiot. Throw him into the jail. So they take him push him into the, a very difficult jail and punish him for, he's going to be here for unstated amount of time. The king is then continuing with his life, and after a couple of weeks, he goes on an expedition into the forest. Yeah. So he lost his fingers in his left hand, but he can still shoot arrows with his right hand. And so he decided to go, and there was a big tiger that they encountered, and everybody ran away, leaving the king alone. But the king fought with his sword, and after a great fight, finally killed the tiger. Yeah. The king is feeling extremely pleased about all of this, and he's feeling, I'm powerful, because he is powerful. He's a very able-bodied man. Now, all this commotion, this tiger fighting, etc., caught the attention of some cannibals who were living in that forest. And they came suddenly, a group of them descended on the place, and then they took the king as their captive. These cannibals had a very strange ritual, and they were going to do Narabali. They were going to sacrifice this king to their deity. So just so everything is done, he's dressed up. They've sprinkled all this turmeric water on him, blah blah blah, and he's made ready. And just when the priest is about to chop his head, the priest notices, oh my God, this fellow doesn't have 2 fingers. And immediately he drops his sword and says, he's not a good candidate for Bali. We first thought because he looks, he has such a fantastic body, he's a very good candidate for Bali. So you're not fit. So and then they let him go. So he went to the edge of death and he came back. And this really shook this king, and he went to his palace, and he's just constantly pondering over and over again about this fortuitous turn of events. And except for his friend who's languishing in the jail, he doesn't have any other trusted friends to help him. So he goes to this friend. So he calls for the friend and then tells what happened to the friend, and then says, how did I escape this? And then the friend very calmly said, this is what I said. This is you losing the finger. It's Shiva's Anugraha. If these fingers were still there, they would have killed you. You survived this. So then the king is, okay, partially convinced, partially not convinced. Then he's saying, but what happened to you? You were in the jail for a few weeks. And I put you in a very difficult jail. What happened? So the minister, casually says, what? If I was not in jail, I would have accompanied you. I would not have run away when the tiger came. I would have been taken away with you. And because your fingers were not there, they would have killed me. So that's Anugraha. This is a beautiful story that Variyar Swamigal shared. I've heard a story on YouTube. Yeah. And to me, this is a fundamental thing about shifting our narrative about ourselves. Okay. And the shifting the narrative does not mean you deny the pain or deny the struggle. Yeah. If the pain is relatively in recent years, you need some time for it to calm down, give the time. But after some time, it is very important to consciously shift the stories. And this shifting happens through divine grace, and that is called Anugraha. Yeah, and there are many layers of shifting. So we will do a small exercise. Before that, I want to do a small chant. Just sit quietly and listen to this chant. I'll just chant this a few times. Om Namah Shivaya Cha. Om Namah Shivaya Shivaya Cha. Om Namah Shivaya Shivaya Namo Namah Shivaya Shivaya Cha Cha Shivaya Shivaya Cha. Om Namah Shivaya Cha. Om Namah Shivaya Shivaya Cha. Om Namah Shivaya Shivaya Namo Namah Shivaya Shivaya Cha Cha Shivaya Shivaya Cha. Keep your eyes closed. Let's listen to these words. I know that I have these stories. I know how they have impacted me and how they will impact me in the future. even if I'm not able to spell it out clearly. In intense moments, this knowing me is lost. In dull moments, this knowing me is lost. But when my body is light and mind bright, I know this me. The space within me where every story resides. This quiet, silent stillness inside me, the aware me. In touch with that space, just see if there is other sides to the story that you're saying. We call this shifting the narrative. Yeah. So some caveats, if the hurt is still raw, you should not try this. Just give it some time. Maybe a year, maybe a few years, sometimes depending on how intense it is. Let it settle down. But at some point, it's important to see if I can shift the narrative. Shifting the narrative does not mean I tell these things didn't happen. It does not mean I deny it or I'm overdoing it or self-gaslighting or nothing of that sort. If we really try to keep saying the stories to ourselves, if we drop guilt, shame, rage, some of the unhelpful emotions, then perhaps we will find other sides to the story that we have not owned up to, which are there. So we can see if how it has enabled us to grow and what I have discovered from it for myself. And therefore, what I am passing on to my family, society. There could be many more. Yeah. So but for that, we have to stay in a deeper space when the emotions are playing out, or if my body is dull, if the mind is dull, it's not possible. Body light, mind bright. If we are in a space of calm awareness, and then we reflect on these stories again. Perhaps when I've noticed it for myself, every time I keep saying that story, and if I'm really aware, I will notice perhaps there is an over exaggeration here. Perhaps I'm missing out on a detail here. And if I really clarify that to me over and over again, some of these stories have a chance of the narrative shifting. And that is traditionally considered an act of Anugraha. Yeah. And this narrative shifting can go many layers deep. But that shifting into a deeper layer and clarifying and cleansing some of these narratives of harmful, unhelpful residues is an act of Anugraha. I'll pause here if anybody wants to share. So the Shiva's dance is not complete if we don't speak about the Pancha Sabha. There are 5 sabhas in which there are Shiva's dance. So that is a topic for an entire session, which I will do on another day. But I just want to at least mention, there is in Chidambaram, in Madurai Meenakshi Amman Temple, in Tiruvalangadu, in Tirunelveli and Kutralam. And different dances of Shiva are seen, Ananda Tandavam, Sandhya Tandavam, Bodha Tandavam. There are a lot of stories behind each of these things and a lot of interesting psychological parallels to explore and enjoy. Yeah, we will do that at some point, but at least I thought we should mention this is a very important aspect of the dance of Shiva. There are 5 different dances. Each of them have some stories behind. And we'll probably show this is the Sabha in Tirunelveli Nelayapur temple. It's so beautiful. If at all I get a chance to go, this is a very long shot. I didn't want to take a shot closer. So in this structure, sorry, this is a very old photo I have. There is a lamp lit, which is really still. Okay, And if you really pay attention, behind this structure, behind that structure, perhaps about 10, 15 meters behind it, there is a beautiful sculpture of Nataraja there, Santana Sabhapati. But when you stand here, so to me, this space is the mind space, and I can clearly, to me, the temple, the Sthapati who's designed it clearly knows what he's doing. When the mind is still, the dance of Nataraja inside can be seen. Yeah, that's how I connected with it. It's a beautiful place.
Where is this?
This is in Tirunelveli. It's a town deep south. This one, the Tamara Sabha, Nelayapar temple in Tirunelveli. It's a huge temple. I mean, just a casual walk around will take you an hour and a half. If you really pay attention to every stone like what I do, it will take 3.5 hours. Yeah, it's a phenomenal place. And that witnessing, no, in yoga, we say, so this is again another beautiful sculpture. Unfortunately, it's in Chor Bazaar in London Museum. It's originally somewhere from Orissa, West Bengal. If you see here, this is phenomenal. Parvati is sitting on Shiva's lap. Parvati is looking at Shiva. She's holding a mirror, and Shiva is looking at that mirror. Yeah, and Shiva is the embodiment of his Purusha, this deep space of stillness, awareness, and consciousness inside. And Parvati is Prakriti, all of nature. Yeah, and the reason these two come together is so that they can witness each other. That's what this Yoga Sutra means. Swaswami Shaktyoho Swarupa Upalabdhi Hetuhu Samyogaha. The reason why these two came together is so that they can see each other. And this is, Maharishi Patanjali says it. So some of these things can help us shift the narrative. And there is a beautiful parallel in Tamil, in Kurundogai. He's a poet, Velli Vidya. Phenomenal. The poems are outrageous, out of the world. It floors me. So, Kandrum Unnadu, Kalathinum Padadu, Nallan, Teempal, Nilathu Ukkangu, Yanakkum Agadu, En Aikum Udavadu, Pasalai Uniyar Vendum, Tidalai Alkul, En Mamai Kavine. So, what this means is she takes the human position, and you can interpret it as a lady pining for her lover, or you can interpret it as a human being pining for this Anugraham and this merging with Shiva. So the poem literally means, like a bowl of milk which has been spilled, neither useful for the calf of the cow nor for the master of the cow. My life is getting wasted here. My beauty is getting wasted, and I'm just sitting alone in separation. Yeah. So that's while the Yoga Sutra describes the process, this is just a human emotion imbued poetry. And this is Maharishi Patanjali says that's why the meeting happens. Yeah. So, and this is a beautiful picture which I took of the temple elephant in Virupaksha praying to Virupaksha at Hampi. Okay. So that's all I have for today. Thank you all. And I will just open out the space for one more round of sharing if anybody has anything to say.